DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves me, you, him, her, them, and they to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass, all under one umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today I'm going to tell you why you do not want to be your own worst critic. Now, this is a phrase that I hear a lot of people use. No, I am my own worst critic. Today I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to give you some I'm gonna give you a counterintuitive perspective on this very subject. And this is something that I do damn near every day on the show. Actually, not damn near, every day on the show, I'm giving you a counterintuitive perspective. I'm gonna stand on it and explain to you why I have this different perspective. And hopefully it can help you look at things a little bit differently, because that's the very point of me having this show. So before I get to explaining a little bit more about that, let me tell you that I have a text line, and at which I want you to send me a text message to tell me the most valuable insight that you get from today's episode. My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. Send me a text. Tell me the most valuable insight that you got from today's episode. Again, since lots of people use this phrase, a lot of people use the phrase as a self-compliment. They use it as kind of like a humble brag that people use. Like, yeah, I'm my own worst critic. Nobody needs to criticize me or hold me accountable or say anything to me. Or it's not that nobody needs to. It's just that even if somebody else does hold me accountable or tell me that I need to step my game up or offer me some constructive criticism, listen, I'm offering more constructive criticism to myself, and I'm just speaking as the people who use this phrase. I'm offering more constructive criticism to myself than anybody else could ever offer to me. So people use it, again, kind of as a humble brag, a self-compliment. This is the kind of answer that someone would give maybe to a question in an interview when they're asked, well, what is your biggest weakness? And someone will say, well, my own worst critic. But they often use it in this way that I just paraphrased. Now, while I do see the value in being your own worst critic and holding yourself accountable and telling yourself when, hey, you need to step your game up, or you need to work on your game, or you need to take things to a higher level, I get it. But I also think too many people use this concept in the wrong way, which is why it's a topic here today. Why I'm telling you that you do not want to be your own worst critic. So let's get right into our points. Point number one, self-talk. What's self-talk? It's a conversation that you're having with yourself at all times. It's the way that you talk to yourself, the way you communicate to yourself. It's even the way that you think. Because when you're thinking, you're having an internal conversation with yourself, an internal question and answer session. You ask yourself a question, you give yourself the answer. We call that thinking, but that is self-talk. It's what you're saying to you. Now, let me tell you something. And again, you can check me on this. Let me know if I got this wrong. Send me a text and tell me if I got this wrong. Most people shit on themselves with their self-talk more than they're actually holding themselves accountable. So when you call yourself being your own worst critic, if you really are that, if you really believe that that's what you are, your own worst critic, most of the critiquing that you're giving to yourself is you shitting on yourself and actually making yourself feel worse about what you're doing more than you're actually holding yourself accountable. There's a fine line between accountability and trashing someone, bashing someone, and that someone could be yourself, making someone look bad or making someone feel bad. These days, what do you see a lot of on social media when we see what has come to be known as cancel culture? I just did a whole episode on this whole concept of cancel culture in episode 1755 just a few weeks ago. If you didn't listen to that, go listen to that one where I talked about cancel culture. The people who are doing the canceling, this is how they make themselves feel better morally. They make themselves feel morally righteous. They say, well, there's no such thing as cancel culture. We're not canceling people. All we're doing is holding them accountable. So people are just kind of starting to use these phrases interchangeably. Get somebody canceled, get somebody fired, get their book deal canceled, get them fired from a job, get them removed from some business deal that they had going on, get them shunned socially, get all your followers and your supporters to go and trash their business on Facebook reviews or Yelp reviews or Google reviews or whatever it is you're going to do. And then you call it, oh no, we didn't cancel them, we just held them accountable. That's bullshit. A lot of times when we call ourselves holding someone accountable, what we're actually doing, whether that someone is someone outside of ourselves or it's ourselves, we're usually just trashing ourselves or trashing that person or trying to make that person look bad or talking down on that person or trying to incite other people to go attack and go at this individual, and we just make ourselves feel morally righteous about it by saying that, oh, it's just accountability. No, bullshit. It's not accountability. You are shitting on that person or you're shitting on yourself. And most of us shit on ourselves much worse than any other person could ever shit on us. This is the challenge with being your own worst critic. Or at least this is the first challenge with being your own worst critic. And this is probably why you don't want to do it. Napoleon Hill talked about the 6 basic human fears in his book, Think and Grow Rich. He also talked about it in The Law of Success. The number 2 fear, back then, I'll tell you the number 1 fear. Number 1 fear was the fear of poverty. Now, Napoleon Hill wrote his book at the height of the Great Depression, and it makes sense that the fear of poverty was the biggest thing. People were killing themselves because they were losing their life savings, didn't have any money, and didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. So I understand why that was the number 1 fear back then. Right now, currently, we're not in a depression, and hopefully we don't see one, but right now, the number 1 basic human fear is not the fear of poverty. I think the number 2 fear that Napoleon Hill listed has now leapfrogged and become number 1. It is the fear of criticism. This is the number 2 basic human fear that Napoleon Hill wrote about in a book 100 years ago, because human nature doesn't change. The fear of criticism is the fear of somebody talking bad about you, the fear that you have of what you think other people might be thinking about you when they're not thinking about you at all. Really, the fear of criticism, if we really boil it down to one single idea, it's the thoughts that you have about yourself that you then assign to other people and claim that other people might be thinking or saying things about you when they're really not thinking or saying shit about you. It's you thinking and saying it about yourself, but instead of owning it and saying you're doing it, you assign it to other people out there. You assign it to an externality so that you don't have to own it. This is the fear of criticism. The biggest critic that people fear is not Bill O'Reilly on TV, or I don't know who else is out there criticizing people, whoever, the New York Times or CNN or somebody with a social media following and a blue check and whatever. The biggest critic is not somebody out there, is not somebody outside of yourself. The biggest critic is the person you look at in the mirror. Then we label it those other people. We label it them. We label it they. Like DJ Khaled says, stay away from they. All right, they is nowhere near you. They is not even thinking about you. Napoleon Hill said in one of his lectures, and all his lectures are, you can find these on YouTube. They're on all the streaming services, Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, Amazon Music. They're on all the streaming services, Napoleon Hill's lectures. And in one of his lectures, he talks about this, that sometimes people don't do what they want to do because they're like, well, they're concerned what they will say. And Napoleon Hill says, I never figured out who they is. Who is this they that everybody's talking about? There is no they. Other people do not give a damn about you and what you have going on. You do, and you're the one who's doing all the criticizing of yourself. The saying is that if any other human being talked to you the way that you talk to yourself, you would not be friends with you. So when we say other people might say something or they might say something, no, it's not them, it's you. And this is why you don't want to be your own worst critic. Maybe why you don't want to be your own worst critic. We are so in fear of that outside criticism and outside criticism can be a real thing. I mean, again, I just did an episode a month ago on cancel culture. So outside criticism can actually occur. The thing is, we are so in fear of that outside criticism that we preemptively criticize ourselves before anyone else does, hoping to head off the outside criticism when it wasn't even coming in the first place. Most people don't get canceled, at least as of today. Most people are not getting canceled. Most people don't have an internet mob coming after them, trying to destroy them, at least not in such a way that it's affecting them in any negative type of way. Most people don't have this happening. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but most people don't have this happening. But every single one of us self-criticizes way more than we need to be self-criticizing. And we self-criticize in a way, again, if you had a friend who was self-criticizing, who was criticizing you the way you criticize yourself, they wouldn't be your friend. So why are you doing it to yourself? So this is what you call being your own worst critic. This is actually not serving you. It's actually taking you backwards. So this is the first reason why you may not want to be your own worst critic. Let's move on to point number 2. The topic once again today is why you don't want to be your own worst critic. Here's why you might want to get a critic who's not you. Because outside eyes can see what you don't see. Every one of us as a human being has blind spots, and our biggest blind spots are the ones that we can't see when we look in the mirror. The parts of our own psyche that we can't see because, as they say, we deceive ourselves. Human beings are masters in deceptions, and we are the easiest ones to deceive. You deceive yourself much better than anyone else could ever deceive you. Why? Because you just can't see your own blind spots. One of my colleagues back in the day used to always say, you can't see yourself in the mirror, metaphorically speaking. There are certain things about you that other people will notice within 5 seconds of coming across you that you don't notice, and you've been alive for 35 years. This is my argument for why you may need other people to be your critics, other people to hold you accountable. And I mean, seriously, hold you accountable and say, hey, you said you were going to do this thing, you didn't do this thing. All right, what do we need to do? What do we need to fix? What went wrong here? That's holding you accountable. All right, trashing yourself and shitting on yourself and talking down on yourself and telling you all the things that are wrong with you, and then recalling all the negative things that have happened in your life that just support this negative thought that you just gave yourself. That is not holding yourself accountable. That's destroying yourself. That's beating yourself up. And that's what most people do when they call themselves holding themselves accountable. It's actually what most people do when they call themselves holding other people accountable. So we really got to get clear on what this word accountable actually means. Is not the way that it's being used these days. That's not real accountability. At least not what I see a lot in the general public. There are many people using it right, but there are many people who are not. My argument for why you may need other people as critics, people who are bigger critics of you than maybe even you are, or better critics of you than you are, definitely better than you, because they can see things in you that you are blind to because you simply can't see all of your own angles. If we have any barbers who are listening to this, people who cut hair, do you cut your own hair? Most of the time, probably not. You would prefer, maybe you would if you had to, but most of the time you would probably prefer to have someone else cut your hair. And why is this? It's because you can't see all the angles on your own head when you're trying to cut your own hair, but you can see all the angles on another person's head because you can move around and you can see everything from every angle. You can't move your eyes out from where they are placed in your skull in order to see the angles of your own head. Even if you use mirrors and all that stuff, it's not the same thing. This is why barbers go to other barbers to get their hair cut. They can't see the angles. This is why teachers have teachers. This is why trainers have trainers. Coaches have coaches. An outside critic isn't angling to beat you down the way that you would beat yourself down or the way that you have beat yourself down. This is why you need an outside set of eyes, a second opinion, if you will, on any accountability, if you want to call it that, or any critiques, constructive criticism that you want to offer yourself. See what somebody else has to say about it. Get a professional on your side, somebody who actually helps people and critiques people and coaches and teaches or whatever it is that you're doing, who does that thing for a living, because they'll know how to hold you accountable and keep a foot in your ass, but at the same time not beating you up and beating you down in such a way that you feel worse about yourself. Because if you're feeling worse about yourself after the constructive criticism, then it wasn't constructive now, was it? That's what we call it, destructive criticism. And if you find yourself indulging in destructive criticism with the conversation you're having with the person in the mirror, that means you need to fire yourself from that job. You need to give somebody else a job. I talked about this in episode number 1593, your responsibilities as a CEO, and also episode 1303, even better, CEO you and employee you. Now, every one of us is a CEO of our own lives. You are the CEO of your own life. Now, you are also an employee in your own life because there are certain roles that you fulfill. But understand, you might need to, the CEO you might need to fire the employee you from doing certain jobs. I'll give you an example. If you are going to the gym and you came up with your own workout programs to do in the gym, but you're finding that you're not kind of getting the fitness results that you want. Maybe that has something to do with your nutrition. Maybe it has something to do with what you're doing when you're in the gym. The CEO you, who recognizes, who's seeing the big picture of your life, might need to look at the employee you, who's your own personal trainer. You might need to fire yourself from that personal trainer job, fire yourself from that nutritionist job, and do what? Replace those roles with someone who actually knows what they're doing, because obviously that person's not you. Go hire a personal trainer. They will do the job of being your personal trainer instead of you, because you're not good at it. Hire somebody who's good at it. So now you know what you're doing in the gym because you have a professional showing you. Fire the nutritionist in you who goes and shops for your own groceries and makes your own meals because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to make anything different, and you be eating the same shit and you're not in good shape. Fire that person and hire somebody who does know what they're doing and let them take that role. So the CEO you has to know when employee you should have a job and when employee you needs to be fired. All right, you don't need to do every job in your life. You don't need to be your own personal trainer. You don't need to be your own therapist. You don't need to be your own nutritionist. You don't need to be your own editor. You don't need to be your own PR spokesperson. There are some jobs that it is good that you do yourself if you're good enough at it and you know what you're doing. And there are some jobs that you need to fire yourself from because you're not good at them and you're actually hurting yourself by keeping yourself employed in those roles. Example, the audio for this show is recorded by me. I am employed, the CEO me employs me as the talent for recording this show right here. This is Dre Baldwin talking into the microphone, what you're listening to right now. But as soon as I'm done recording, I have other people who do every other role to get this show from the microphone to actually getting into your ears. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or YouTube or SoundCloud or wherever you listen to it, there are other people in those roles that I fired myself from those roles and put other people in place in those roles to edit the audio, to get the episode up on my website, dreallday.com, to make sure it gets aggregated to all the platforms like Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, etc. I have other people in place to do those roles. I fired myself from that role and put other people in those spots. You got to know when to fire yourself. You might want to fire yourself from being your own biggest critic. All right, that's a precarious job and it's not for everybody. And you might be one of those everybody's that is not for. You following what I'm saying here? Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is why you do not want to be your own worst critic. Let me tell you what you do want to be. You want to be your number one accountability partner. And we just talked about accountability here. Accountability and criticism are two different things, even though people seem to have conflated them a lot these days. They're doing a whole lot of criticizing, a whole lot of attempted cancellations, and then they call it, oh, well, I'm just holding that person accountable. No, you're not. Holding somebody accountable doesn't destroy them. You don't destroy somebody and hold them accountable at the same time. You got to pick one. Which one are you doing? Holding someone accountable, they're still whole and they can still go do the thing that you held them accountable for when they're done. If you're holding someone accountable, you're letting them know, yo, you were supposed to do this thing, or this thing was supposed to get done, or you did this thing you weren't supposed to do. You let them know that a mistake was made, and then when you're done letting them know, they're able to go and fix that thing, and all is well from that point forward after they fix it. Now, if you call yourself holding someone accountable, but they're in a worse position after you held them accountable, then you're not holding them accountable. You're destroying them. That's destructive criticism. That's not accountability. Accountability is, this didn't get done. Let's find out why it didn't get done. I'm letting you know that it didn't get done. Let's fix it. Now, or you have the assignment to go get this thing done so it doesn't happen again. That's what accountability looks like. If someone's feeling worse, or they look worse, or their situation just got worse after your quote unquote accountability, then you are failing as an accountability partner. Therefore, you should remove yourself from that job. You are unqualified. So any of you out there who calls yourself holding someone accountable, ask yourself, what is the end result of your accountability audit? Is that person in a better position or a worse position after you came through? If it's better, then yes, you are doing well as an accountability partner. If it's worse, you should be fired from that job. You do not deserve the job. You are unqualified. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Or you do know exactly what you're doing and you're deceiving people by calling it accountability, because that's not what it is. So which one are you doing? If you're going to be your number one accountability partner, let me tell you how it's done. You're going to list out what your commitments are. What are you committed to getting done today, this week, this month, this year, this quarter? What are you committed to getting done? Make them measurable in some way that they are checkbox worthy. In other words, you can check it off. This is done. All right, I did this, done, completed. I know it's done because here's the tangible way I can measure it. Make them checkbox worthy so you can check them off, know that they're done. Track your progress and or your lack of progress on things that didn't get done. Then hold yourself accountable to getting things done. When you don't get something done, holding yourself accountable means, okay, I'm recognizing that this thing didn't get done. Let's find out why it did not get done. What adjustments need to be made? Do I need to work harder? Do I need to show up earlier? Do I need to stay later? Did I just put too much on my plate? Should I not have even been trying to do the job in the first place? Do I need some outside help? Do I need more information? Did I do something wrong here? Did I have the wrong idea? Did I plan something that just wasn't planned correctly? That's what accountability looks and sounds like. You're finding out. You're on a fact-finding mission as to why things didn't go the way they needed to go, or why things did go the way they needed to go. That's what accountability is. No one should feel personally attacked when they're being held accountable. I'm pausing there to let that one sink in, because that's what accountability looks and sounds like. This is what a coach does. This is what a mentor does. This is what a mastermind group does. No one should leave a mastermind group call feeling personally attacked because they're being held accountable. Those are two completely different things. So next time you hear somebody saying, well, I'm just holding this person accountable. Yeah, they got fired from their job and excommunicated from all their social circles, but hey, I was just holding them accountable. Bullshit. No, you weren't. Hold yourself accountable to getting the things done that you were doing. That is something that you can do. That will work, and that will make you a partner in your own success. That is something that I can applaud. But you being your own worst critic, for most of you, that shit doesn't work. Fire yourself in that position. You are not qualified for the job. Hire a professional who can actually help you and do it in a constructive way. Let's recap today's class, which is why you do not want to be your own worst critic. And if you already are your own worst critic, all right, absolve yourself from those duties immediately and put out a help wanted sign and find somebody who can help you out. There are a lot of people who use this phrase as some kind of self-compliment, a humble brag. While I do see the value in it, I think too many people use it the wrong way. Number one, think about your self-talk. If another person talked to you the way that you talk to yourself, you wouldn't be friends with you. Napoleon Hill's are the 6 basic human fears. Fear number 2, 100 years ago, is fear number 1 today. It is the fear of criticism. The biggest critic that most of you fear is yourself. We label it other people, but it's not them, it is you, because nobody else is thinking about you. We are so in fear of outside criticism that we preemptively criticize ourselves, and then we're beating ourselves up when nobody else is going to say a damn thing because they didn't care in the first place. Number 2, an outside set of eyes can see what you don't see. This is why you need someone else to be your biggest critic. Someone who is better than you, someone who can see the things that you don't see, and who will hold you accountable without beating you up like you do to yourself. They can see the angles that you can't see. The same way a barber or hairstylist doesn't do their own hair. They get somebody else to do it because they can't see themselves in the mirror the same way that somebody else can see them from the outside. And an outside critic is not angling to beat you down the way that you beat yourself down. Number 3, here's what you do want to do is be your own accountability partner. Accountability partner, you can list your commitments, make them measurable, checkbox worthy, track your progress, hold yourself accountable to getting things done. If something doesn't get done, go on a fact-finding mission and find out why, but do not beat yourself up over the fact that something didn't get done, which is what you usually do to yourself. This is what accountability looks like, and the difference between accountability and cancellation. That will work and make you a partner in your own success. That's something that I can applaud. It is a fine line between the two. If you need some help with that, send me a text and let me know. I can help you out. My number is 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.